All right, welcome back to the channel. So today we're doing something a little bit different, new for the channel. We're going to do a Victory at Sea battle report. So my friend, who's also gotten into the game, is going to come over, and we are going to try and get our first game of Victory at Sea in. Now we have run a couple of rounds of kind of a learn to play scenarios, but just a couple of rounds, not a full game, not a lot of ships. This is the first time we're going to go bring our own lists and actually try and get a full game in. We'll see how that goes. You'll see when the battle report plays how that goes. Now, I know battle reports can be long. I will do my best to speed through things as I can. Because it's our first game, I'm sure there will be bumps in the road. I will try and edit as much out as I can to make this as condensed as possible. That said, there will be mistakes made, I am sure. If I can, I will point those out after the game if I realize that they happen. If we don't realize something happened and you notice that we made a mistake with the rules, please post down in the comments. Let us know what we did wrong so that we can get it right next time. We're both new to the game. Neither of us know anybody else who plays the game. So we are really taking this kind of a learn it on our own type of a pace where we don't have anyone here to teach us how to play. But I mean, we both played a lot of other games in the past, so I think we've figured out most stuff. But usually with these types of games, we'll get something wrong. Now we have a couple of different things that we did with lists. We're limiting ourselves to just destroyers, cruisers, and battleships. No carriers, no flights, no subs, no MTVs. So it's going to be a really pared down basic type of a list. The plan is probably in the next game or two, depending on how this one goes, we'll start adding in flights and subs, and probably the last thing that we'll add in will be the MTBs. I do have my 3D printer. I want to start printing out some terrain for my mat. Right now I don't have any island terrain, but I think that will add a lot of interest to the games. But I have to get at that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly go through the list that I had. We decided on just over 1,000 points. We are just going with the point value on the card, no refits. We did find that made it a little harder to hit a specific point value. So we're just going with slightly over 1,000 points. And we're going to see how that goes. I don't know what my friend is bringing for his list. The only thing that I think he's going with bigger, heavier guns. So I do think that I will probably out-activate him, although he will have more big shots coming in at me, and we'll just have to see how that goes. So if I can, I will splice in his list between the end of me showing my list and we start with the battle report. But for now, why don't we just go through my list and see what I'm bringing. So to start things out, I went with a Congo battle cruiser battleship at just over 1,000 points. I'm not going to bring the Yamato. It would be the only thing that I would be able to bring because we're going just over 1,000 points. Maybe I could have one destroyer or something. But I wasn't going to do that. I'm going to save the Yamato till a point where we're playing at least 1,500 points to 2,000 points before I try and bring that. So for tonight's game, the Congo will be my flagship. Then we will have one Mogami cruiser. No big surprise there. If you're into the game right now and you play Japanese, you have plenty of Mogami cruisers, and they are pretty good. So we're going to go with one of those. Then I am going with the Yahagi, which is an Agano cruiser, light cruiser. This was a tough choice for me because he's going with big ships. I'm not sure that this is going to get a lot of work done for me, although because I feel like this is kind of a destroyer killer. This is what you want hunting down the destroyers. It's got torps, it's got fast track on its guns. The fast track isn't going to really help me much in this game, I don't think, unless he brings more destroyers than I think he does. But yeah, I think my tactic is with this is to use this to help clear out as many destroyers as I can before we get into the big ships. We'll see how much work that gets done tonight. At only 110 points, it's worth it, I think. Then after that, we have the Kogaro class destroyers. Now, I took these not because I think that they're a great destroyer. They're very expensive for a destroyer at 100 points. They do have the slow loading trait, so if they survive, you will be able to get multiple torpedo volleys off with them. I mostly did this to reduce my activations a bit to keep this game moving along a little bit better. And then finally, I also have 2 Fubukis. Now these I think will be the mainstay destroyers in my lists. But we'll see how that goes. Now, I do think we will probably do the scouting rules. We're not going to get heavy into that just because we have no flight, so it's not as big a deal. But we're going to try and do it to have some practice with it. I believe I have 9 aircraft that I'll be able to do for scouting, and then depending on how much I out-activate my friend with, I will probably throw at least 2, maybe 3 destroyers in with that just to see how that goes. And it will keep the game going if they end up off the board a little bit at the beginning anyways, and we'll see how if they even get back onto the board. The way I roll my dice, they'll probably never even get back onto the board, but we'll have to let's just see how that goes. So stay tuned. If I can, I will splice in my friends list right now. If not, we'll get right into the battle report, probably do a little bit of deployment here, and we'll see how it goes. Here is my opponent's list. It would be the Hood, the Duke of York, and 2 tribal class destroyers. Be back as soon as we're ready to deploy. We've begun the deployment phase. I lost the roll for deployment and am placing my ships first. My opponent will be placing his ships second. We decided not to do any scouting. I had far more scouting opportunities than my opponent did, so just to make things even in a learning type of a game for us, we decided to forego scouting. We're also not doing any of the country-specific rules yet. And that's about it. So here we go, and we will be rolling shortly for initiative. I win initiative for the first round, which means my opponent will move a ship first, then I will move, and then once we get to the attack phase, I will attack first, and then my opponent will attack. Once we get to the attack phase, I will let you listen in a little bit to our conversation, because I do think that it is important to hear. I have heard several people talking about the ranges of your ships, and I think it's important to understand that just because your ship can shoot a certain distance doesn't mean that you can necessarily. So we'll listen into that once we get to the attack phase. Alright, so now shooting. It's bridge to bridge. cannot shoot because it's over 30.
Oh, he's only got 30?
No, so if it's over 30 is the horizon.
Oh.
No matter what your range is, you can't shoot over that, over 30. The only time when you can shoot over 30 is if you have an observation plane and the ship that you're shooting at or a land emplacement isn't moving. So any moving ship you can't target over the horizon.
Okay.
Even if you had an observation ship. So I thought that was important for you to hear our discussion there about the horizon. Just because the ship says that it can shoot 40 inches doesn't mean that you necessarily can. The ship has to be either anchored, run aground, or it's a land emplacement. That's the only way you can shoot those extreme distances over 30 inches. So even though that your ship can shoot that far, even if you have an observation flight, you cannot target a ship that is further than 30 inches. We did find, while we were playing, that both of his battleships did have extreme range shots of less than 30 inches on one destroyer. We did roll all of those. They weren't going to cause any damage because of all of the modifiers, but even if a dice is not going to cause damage, there is still a chance that it could have a critical. So we rolled to see if there were any sixes. There weren't. If there had been, we would have rolled again to see if a critical had hit. But none of that happened. So there was no damage, and we moved right into the movement phase for round 2. Really quick for round 2, my opponent won the initiative roll, so I move my ship, one of my ships first, back and forth through the movement phase. We're going to do that really fast. And then we get into the shooting. Early on, especially in this game, we really had to talk through all of the hit modifiers. And when we did get hits, we had to think a little bit about damage and accounting for things like plunging fire. So there is a lot of talking back and forth between us every time we roll the dice, especially in these first couple of rounds. So I will speed through a lot of that. I will just mention that, as I had mentioned earlier, my opponent decided to go after my smaller ships, and he goes after my Akagi cruiser first. I was hoping to let that one sneak around and get some torpedo shots in with that, but that didn't work out. So we're going to speed through quite a bit of the game here. And you'll start seeing, especially some of my smaller ships in the top part of the screen, start to be deleted. And as important things come up, I will pipe back in, but I don't want this to be, a 2-hour video. We're going to try and condense this as much as possible. There is a couple of really important turns that I will break in for and talk about, and at the end I will break down a little bit of my thoughts of how this game went and what I think we need to think about, my opponent and I, in the future as we play. So enjoy watching. This will go rather quickly, except for when there is kind of maybe a more exciting moment. While we are going through the movement phase for turn 3 here, I did just want to mention that I do have plastic sleeves, hard plastic sleeves. They're 4x6. with the exception of 4 cards, they all fit perfectly. Those other 4 cards, for whatever, were slightly larger, and I had to trim probably a millimeter off the top of the cards. But they slide into the sleeves really well, and I use those sleeves in a dry erase marker in order to track my damage, where my opponent is using the traditional sliders. That's why you may see me at times go over and it looks like I'm writing on the cards. I'm actually writing on the hard plastic sleeves, and then I can just take a towel or a tissue and wipe them off and track my damage that way. I think that may be a little bit more efficient and less fiddly, I'm hoping, than using the sliders. I will make sure to keep folks posted in future videos about how well that works for me. But we will get to the attack phase here and see how things are going. The attack phase of this turn turns out to be quite long, so I am going to speak over a bit of it. You will notice that as we go through this, my ships start leaving the board. He gets 1 cruiser and 1 of my destroyers fairly early. But at the end of the game, at the end of the turn, there is kind of a turning point in the game that I just want to explain what happens now, and I will let that play in real time, that one attack, because it's probably the most interesting attack in this game. And it was probably the high point of the game for me, even though I ended up losing the game. So we'll watch this go through, but at the end, the last attack of the round is going to be my Congo class battleship / battle cruiser, which I'll talk about later, but shooting against the hood. Unlike me, I rolled really well in this with this attack and got several damage. Now with the battleships, it's really hard to get the damage, but one thing that I think we learned in doing this game is you really need the criticals. The criticals are what are going to bring the big ships down. It's not doing straight damage. You need the criticals. You need to be pushing as many criticals through as you possibly can to really hinder what that ship can do, and also to kind of multiply the damage onto it. So in this attack, you'll end up seeing that I end up getting 3 criticals in the one attack. I roll them. I did get a vital systems critical, and in that vital systems critical, unfortunately, I just rolled a 2, which, I mean, none of them are terrible. I mean, you take a vital system hit anytime you can get it, because it's for the duration of the game. Obviously, you want the 6 on a vital system to just eliminate the ship right then and there. But I got a 2, which means I get to do d6 damage, which is fine. I mean, yeah, it's an additional d6 damage, which is good. But then it's a rudder jammed, and you roll a d6, and depending on the result of that for the rest of the game, the ship either has to turn left, have no turn, or turn right at every opportunity. Now, we ended up getting no turn, so this is where it was a turning point in the game. So, okay, so I would have preferred that he was forced to turn. Then I'm not going to get too much into that because it doesn't say how much you have to turn. So I think that's something that you need to work out with your opponent. But with no turn and where he was facing pretty much towards the edge of the board. So as soon as he got the no turn, he was just heading off the board, which forced me to kind of focus on the hood for the rest of the game, trying to kill it before it left the board. because he was already killing my smaller ships. He was going to win the points battle unless I could kill the hood, and if he just sailed it off the board, well, then I believe I only get 25% of the points, which is, unfortunate. So in order to save the points, knowing that I was focusing down the hood, and his other battleship, I had done no damage to this point, and I wasn't going to get it unless I got like a miracle crit or something. So I was focusing down the hood. He's trying to sail off the board as quickly as he can. And because he got the no turn, and the way he was facing, he was able to do that. If he was forced to say turn right every single time, at every opportunity, then he's in theory spinning in circles a little bit, and I know where he is, and I can just keep focusing him down, and he can't get off the board. So that was unfortunate. We'll let that attack play out, and then we will finish the game up after that through a few more rounds, because it takes a few rounds for him to get the hood off the board, but not a lot changes. He does end up killing my Mogami. I believe he ended up destroying all of my other ships except for the Congo. I don't think he took a single shot at the Congo, which was probably smart on his part. And I believe all I took out was his destroyers in the end. So let's watch that one attack, and then we'll speed through the rest of the game.
It's not that bad.
Not that bad, yes. Just all those
5,
ones.
and you got 3s,
Twos.
2s. Okay, so you got 10
10.
damage dice.
One, two, three, four, five, six, 7, 8, 10.
I've got armor 5, which
And plus 1
so 4.
for fours.
It's short, so it's not plunging fire.
It's not
so
plunging fire,
fours,
so
4, 5,
fours.
6. You got 3 criticals. Crap. Okay, so 6
damage.
1,
And
2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So you're at 85.
And criticals.
3 crits.
3 crits.
Dang. Get hammered, Hood. Get hammered.
Got the 0.
1, 10, 4. So what's the 1?
So engine and weapons. Or no, they're both engine. 1 and 4 are engine.
2 engine.
And
You
then
gotta roll the
a
critical
vital system, which is you roll a 6, right?
Yep.
Two.
Rudder damage. Or rudder jammed. Roll
Yeah.
a d6.
For the rest of the game,
at every
if you're in
opportunity the ship must.
must.
Turn left, no turn, turn right.
Okay, so I do a d6 damage. So we'll do that first.
What? Yes, you roll a d6.
D6 for damage. See the thing right next to it?
No.
Right here.
Is that
Damage. You do
Okay.
d6 damage. And then we have to do this. They're two separate things.
okay? So that actually does extra damage. Okay.
Yeah.
And
They-
it's
they-
just
Just add it up.
Yeah.
So it's just you
It's
roll
whatever
a 6,
I
it's
roll.
6 damage. Fine. Is it that 1 damage, or is it?
I think that doesn't count. Yeah, I think that's nothing. I think 1s are always nothing.
Okay.
But now,
So now every time I turn, I have to, or every time I move, I
do you
have
roll
to
this
turn.
one or do I roll it? Doesn't matter. Or it doesn't say.
It just says roll a d6.
Well, it's affecting your ship, so you roll the dice.
4.
No turns.
So no turn. So I can't turn at all.
You can't turn.
That sucks. Like, you can't get rid of that?
No.
I can't send some frogmen down there and fix the rudder?
So you get... There's your rudder.
Well, that shucks.
Yeah, well, that's something. I'll at least know which way you're going.
Extremely straight.
Alright, so that's it for the turn. Okay, so that was the most interesting attack in the game. Now, I'm going to let this play through, but in the interest of not making this video too long, I am going to try and hold this to about a 30-minute total video. So I'm just going to talk for a little bit, let the rest of the video play through on fast speed. I think I mentioned not a lot more happens. I get a couple of destroyers, he gets my Mogami and my other destroyer. He wins on points. But a couple of things that I think we learned. First of all, without flights, the battleships are just going to wreak havoc in the game. And as it turns out, he had 2 legitimate battleships. And I had the Congo, which, yes, it's technically a battleship on the Japanese side in terms of the rules of the game, but it is a battle cruiser by name, so it's kind of a light battleship. It had fewer points than either of his battleships. And I just wasn't able to push enough damage and enough crits through on those big heavy ships. I think if I had the Yamato and a couple other ships, I probably would have sunk at least one of his battleships. But some interesting things with the way the crits work, because the crits, when you get that 0 and you get a vital system, I mean, that's going to really change the game when those happen. In some ways, my opponent got lucky in that he got the no turn, so he was able to run right off the board. But, with the different weapons problems that you can have, the inability to be able to do damage control, just in complete elimination of a ship is very interesting in my mind. I pay 1,000 points for a Yamato. My opponent takes one shot at it, happens to get a crit through, happens to get a vital systems hit, happens to get the 6. Yamato gone in one shot. It's not likely, but it is there in the game. It's a possibility. I think that's fun. I mean, in real life, ships like the Hood were one shot that ends up, hitting, going through the deck and hitting explosives inside the ship, and the whole ship just explodes. I mean, that actually happened, so it's thematic. So I do like that. I do think in the future we do need to start playing the country-specific rules. I think that's important for us to start getting used to doing that. I also think we need to get flights on the board. Unfortunately, neither of us own a lot of flights, although we both play Armada and we both have a bunch of Armada squadrons, so we have a lot of stuff to proxy flights. I don't think either of us love to do that. We like to be immersed in the game, and when you're flying X-Wings and TIE fighters around World War II battleships, it's not all that... it takes you out of the immersion of the game, which I think both of us appreciate. But thank you very much for watching. We do intend to do games from time to time, and I will try to do more battle reports. I have live streamed other games before. I will potentially try and live stream some Victory at Sea as well, and then condense those live streams down into battle reports. This game was quite long because we are both still getting used to the rules. I think once we get all of those attack modifiers down in our heads, things will move much quicker, and I do look forward to that. I also look forward to potentially getting another player or two into the game. But thank you very much. Keep coming back. If you enjoy the Victory at Sea content, please please subscribe. I very much appreciate it. And we will see you next time.